Good evening and welcome to our Smyrna Town Council meeting. I am going to call our meeting to order, and tonight Chaplain Tim York from the Smyrna Police Department will lead us in prayer, and our pledge will be done by Assistant Town Manager Todd Spearman. If you'll all stand with us, please.
Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And I pray for our council and for all those who serve our city, Lord, that your will would be done in our city like it would be done in heaven. We lift these up to you today. We pray for wisdom. We pray for clear direction. And Lord, we pray your continued blessings upon a city you have blessed so much in the recent years. And Lord, we pray for those who serve our city, our law enforcement, our EMS, our firefighters, Lord, every person who serves this city. We pray for them and thank you for them, and bless our families and continue to guide our city. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chaplain. Thank you, Todd. Ms. Amber, if you will do roll call, please.
Councilman Cole. Councilman Morrell.
Present.
Councilwoman Peebles.
Here.
Councilman Short.
Here.
Councilman Sullivan.
Here.
Vice Mayor Atkins.
Here.
And Mayor Reed.
Here. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, which is approval or corrections of the minutes of the July 12th regular meeting and the July 28th work session meeting of the Town Council. Jeff, are these in order? Great. Any additions or corrections to these? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move we approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes pass. We'll now move on to correspondence and communications. Anything tonight, Brian?
No, ma'am.
What about awards and recognitions?
No, ma'am, not tonight.
Okay, we'll move on to our consent agenda, and these are items that are determined by the town manager to be routine matters, not necessarily needing individual discussion, but I always like to read these off so those in the audience and those at home know exactly what we're voting on. And if there is an item that council would like to discuss individually, we can pull that item off to vote on it separately. So under our consent agenda tonight, we have quite a few items. Our first is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a renewal contract with City Works relative to the permitting software. Item B, approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute an agreement with SEC Engineering to provide survey, engineering design, bidding, and limited construction administration services for Rock Springs Road Sidewalk Project. Item C is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute the annual TDOT contract for mowing, litter control, and roadway maintenance. Item D is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute the contract with Cleary Construction Incorporated for the Jeannie Lane Extension Project. Item E is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute the proposal with Energy Land and Infrastructure LLC for professional CEI services for the Jeannie Lane Extension Project. Item F is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute change order number 1 with Sessions Paving Company on the Lowry Street Phase 1 Streetscapes project. Item G is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute the proposal with Energy Land and Infrastructure LLC for professional CEI services for the Spring Hill Extension project. Item H is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a renewal contract with the town's third-party administrator, CCMSI. Item I is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a lease agreement with the Rutherford County Board of Education for the practice field area located behind Smyrna Elementary School. Item J is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a performance agreement with Missy Garnett to provide music and sound for the Top Gun Night Run 6K race. Item K is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a performance agreement with O'Donnell's for the 2022 Barbecue Fest. Item L is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a performance agreement with Missy Garnett relative to the music and sound for the 2022 Depot Days Car Show on September 23rd, 2022. Item M is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute change order number 3 for the wastewater treatment plant expansion. And last but not least, item N is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with Paul Corporation for the upgrade of the pneumatic manifolds for the membrane filtration system. Questions, comments? Anyone want to pull one off and discuss individually? Nope. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda passes. We'll now move on to old business. Tonight we have 4 public hearings. Our first one is consideration of a revision to the sewer use ordinance, section 18-216, to include language requiring food service establishments to comply with the town's fats, oil, and grease management policy. Hi, Mike.
How are you?
Great.
Good. As you said, this does revise the language in the ordinance to include language that says that everyone has to comply with the management policy for the fats, oils, and grease program that council previously approved.
Questions for Mike on this before we go to the public? Okay, seeing no questions, we'll go to the public to see if there's anyone here to speak for or against this ordinance. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing, go to council for a motion. A motion to approve. Do you have a second? Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to our second public hearing, which is a consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 28M, Group C, parcel 6.00 to go from R2 to R4. It's requested by Gamal Kamal. The property requested to be rezoned contains approximately 33/100ths of an acre and is located at 102 and 104 Weekly Street. Kevin?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is a rezoning request. It's on Weekly Street, about 100 feet south of the intersection with Enid Springs West. It's also adjacent to Frank Street. Land use plan would support medium-density, single-family residential in this area. Surrounding zoning is a mix of R2 and R4. This is a little bit of a unique situation. The parcel of land, as it exists, has 2 houses on it. The owner does wish to subdivide the property and have each house on its own lot. The current zoning of R2 does require a minimum of 12,000 square feet as far as a minimum lot size, and the lot is actually about 14,495 square feet. So it would not be allowed to be subdivided as it is currently zoned. The R4 district does allow for a 6,000 square foot lot size for a single family house, which would allow for the lot to be divided into 2 lots and have each house on its own lot. The Planning Commission did review this to recommend approval, and staff would also recommend approval.
Questions for Kevin on this? Seeing none, we'll go to the public to see if there's anyone here to speak for or against this item. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing and go to council for a motion.
I move we approve.
A motion, do we have a second? Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item C, our next public hearing is a consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 27I, Group B, parcel 1.01 to go from C2 to LSO with LSO to R2 with LSO. It's requested by Caleb Spearing. The property requested contains approximately 59/100ths of an acre and is located at 103 Maple Street. Kevin?
Yeah, this is on Maple Street, about 150 feet east of the intersection with Sam Davis Road. This is kind of in our Depot District character area, which would kind of support a mix of various things, more of an urban type environment. Surrounding zoning is a mix of C2 and R2. This property also does lie within the Lowry Street Overlay District, which is LSO, and that would not change with this request. There's an existing house on this property that has been used as a commercial business, which caused the grandfathered residential use to cease. And so the new owner does wish to reestablish the residential use, and so this would basically go back to the R2 zoning, which is what it was before it was commercial. The Planning Commission did review this, should recommend approval, and staff would also recommend approval.
Questions for Kevin on this? Seeing no questions, it is a public hearing, so I'll go to the public to see if there's anyone here to speak for or against this item. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and go to council for a motion.
Move to approve.
A motion, do we have a second? Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Our last public hearing tonight is a consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of a portion of tax map 33, parcel 71.00 and 71.03 to go from R1 with ESO to PUD with ESO, as well as the amendment of the approved PUD for tax map 33, parcel 71.00, 71.01, and 71.03, requested by Nathan Melson. The properties requested to be rezoned and amended contain approximately 12.61 acres and are located on Enon Springs Road West and Big Sun Lane. Kevin?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is an existing approved PUD. It's part of our, it's on Enon Springs West. It's near the Rocky Fork Schools complex there. Land use plan would support kind of our 24 gateway area, which would again be a mix of retail, restaurant, and multifamily uses. Surrounding zoning is a mix of R1, C2, and the PRD, which is Sundale. And again, these are part of the Enon Springs Overlay District and will not change with this request. There's a couple aspects to this. Again, it is an existing PUD, which was approved to allow for 87 townhomes and then 2 commercial lots with C4 uses, as well as the additional uses of government administrative use and daycare use. And since that PUD approval took place, the town and the developer did have execute a land swap. And so part of this request would be to expand that PUD approval all the way to cover all the existing property there, which would benefit both ownership with that. And the amendment request is to add the use of convenience commercial where fuel may be sold as an allowed use for basically that parcel 71, which is the parcel at the corner of Enon Springs West and Big Sun Lane. No other requirements of the PUD would change. The density is not changing on the residential side. The type of units, or none of that's changing. It's just that use in that one lot. The Planning Commission did review this, should recommend approval, 5-4-1 against, with the added condition that a traffic study will be required for a convenience store gas station use within the development, and the developer will be required to make any improvements recommended by the traffic study. Often that type of use is going to kick in and have a traffic study required anyway, but this would basically, if this is approved with that condition, no matter how large the gas station is, even if it's a very small 4-pump type gas station or something like that, a traffic study would be required. And that would come with the site plan. Again, the Planning Commission did recommend approval. Staff would also recommend approval.
Questions for Kevin on this one? Okay, seeing none, we will go to the public to see if there's anyone here to speak for or against this item. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and go to council for a motion.
I move we approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
I still have some concerns with that being, with the gas station being right there on the corner, so I'm still very uncomfortable with that being the reason for the change.
Okay, anything else? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 8, under new business, the Planning Commission report. We have a couple of items tonight. The first one is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 28, part of parcel 57.00 to go from R4 to PRD requested by Rob Mulchin. The property requested to be rezoned contains approximately 7.37 acres and is located on Cheney Road. Kevin?
Yeah, this is a rezoning request. Its property is on Cheney Road. It's immediately south of the Laverne High School football and baseball stadiums. The land use plan for this area is the Sam Ridley corridor character area, which would support a mix of retail and services as what uses, as well as high-density residential in appropriate locations. Surrounding zoning is R4, R6, and C2 in Smyrna, and C1 government use in Laverne. This proposed PRD is for 67 townhomes on 7.37 acres, a density of about 9.09 units per acre. Approximately 2.64 acres of the parcel would remain zoned R4 and continue in use as the church, which is already on the property. The units would be a minimum of 1,600 square feet in size, be a mix of brick, stone, and fiber cement siding. End units of each building would have 2-car garages. The interior units would have 1 car, and all the units would have the double car width driveways and be set back at least 35 feet from the back of the sidewalk. The existing church would continue to be located on the remaining property, and some of their parking, if this is approved, would be removed, and so parking requirements will have to be reevaluated, and they may have to add some parking as a part of this if this is approved. There is adequate room on our site to do so, and that would be something we would look at with the site plan submittal. The Planning Commission did review this, did recommend approval, and staff would also recommend approval.
Questions for Kevin on this?
There are sidewalks all throughout, correct?
There's sidewalks completely throughout the project. There's an existing sidewalk along Cheney Road that they would be tying into as well.
Okay.
This is essentially directly across from Cedar Grove.
It's basically right directly across from Cedar Grove School and just north of the Poplar Grove condos that are there.
Yeah, okay. There's townhomes or something similar just right beside this, right?
Just south of it, yes. And then if you go south of Cedar Grove School, there's the apartments there as well.
You didn't see them right there.
Yeah, I see it on the map, yeah.
And a lot of those were double garage units. So in planning, we talked to the developer originally and asked them to change a lot of their units, and they came back and agreed to do so. So that's how we got the double garage units and the 35-foot setbacks. And made a difference, I think. The R6 that's south of there, right there, this is going to mirror that quite a bit, so.
You know, every time we talk about these type of products, we talk about consistency with the area. And it fits in this area with the school on one side, the church, and then of course Poplar Grove condos right there. It fits this area. If there's somewhere in town that this type of product fits, it's this one.
Other questions or comments?
You mentioned something in the meeting, Kevin, about the church as far as the parking. You'll deal with that if they come to planning.
Yes, yeah, they are going to be removing some of the parking spaces for the church, and so they may have to add some more back. I don't know it's based, we'll have to look at it and reevaluate it. I can't recall, the church has been there for probably close to 20 years now, and so I can't recall the site plan and how many were required and all that, so, but that'll be something we look at the Planning Commission if this is approved with a site plan. Yeah.
Was it, I'm trying to remember, was it based upon the square footage of the sanctuary?
It's based on the seating capacity of the sanctuary.
As far
yeah.
as the.
As far as how many are actually required, yes. So, I mean, they may have enough there already, even with what they would be losing, so.
Kevin, help me remember on the parking pads. I know they're 35 foot, which eliminates a lot of our problem. Are they 4-pad outside?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I move we approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now I'll move on to item 2, which is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 28E, Group C, parcel 4.00 to go from C4 to R3, requested by Sharif Faoud. The property requested contains approximately 24/100ths of an acre and is located at 188 Moore Avenue. Kevin?
This is on Moore Avenue. It's about 350 feet east of the intersection with North Lowry there. Land use plan would support a medium-density residential here, single-family. Surrounding zoning is a mix of C2, C4, and PCD, which is actually the Woodfin Funeral Home property. This property is currently undeveloped. Planning Commission did review this, did recommend denial. Staff would also recommend denial.
Kevin, talk to me a little bit about this and the denial.
Yeah. This whole area was rezoned from residential to commercial several years ago. I can't remember exactly. It's been several years ago. And at the time, we were receiving some requests for commercial zoning along Moore Avenue. And so we looked at the big picture and just looked at all of it at once, and we kind of rezoned it all at once rather than piecemeal it. The owners at the time wanted that and were supportive of that. And so, and it's not really developed in that way over that time since that's happened. For the most part, there's, I think, one or two maybe it did. And so the applicant requested to go back to residential to basically be able to build a house on the property, which would be really consistent with the uses for the most part. We did talk with him about it, and we'd feel better if several of the other owners also wanted to do that. I think we could be supportive of going back to the residential zoning. But we didn't want to put residential in the middle of all the commercial. It was kind of a reverse spot zoning in a way. And so to go back and look at all the properties along through there, and he actually owns another property in that area, so he would already asked and really looked at if you could get a majority of the parcels that would be supportive of that, we could probably move forward then at that time and maybe look at doing all of it. But that's kind of what we recommended to him. He was at the meeting and spoke, and we recommended it to him.
Well, and I think, Steve, you just talked about consistency a while ago, and I think that's a perfect example right here. So I am glad that you all gave him some options of things that might work. So, okay, so do we have a motion?
Move that we deny the request.
A motion to deny. Do we have a second?
Second.
The second, any discussion? All in favor of denial, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is denied. Item 3 is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 49, parcel 107.00 to go from C4 to PRD. It's requested by Peter Gay Taylor. The property requested to be rezoned contains approximately 4.38 acres and is located at 10259 Old Nashville Highway. Kevin?
Yeah, this is a request. It is at 10259 Old Nashville Highway. It's about 250 feet south of the intersection with Stewart Valley Drive. It's adjacent to the Lennox development as well. Land use plan is the Old Nashville corridor character area, which would support a mix of neighborhood, retail, and personal service uses, as well as townhomes and attached residential as well. Surrounding zoning is a mix of C2, C4, R1, and PUD, which is the Lennox PUD. This proposed PRD is for 46 townhomes. Access would be from Old Nashville Highway as well as from Horwick Lane, which is one of the roads within Lennox. The townhomes would be 1,600 to 2,000 square feet in size, be a mix of brick and concrete siding. Units would be a mix of 2 and 3 stories, and all would have double width driveways with at least 35 feet between the unit and the private roadways. There would also be additional guest parking spaces spread throughout the site. This planning commission, the vote on this one was unique. The motion to recommend approval did fail for lack of a second, and the motion to recommend denial failed as the vote was 2-4, 2 against. And with this vote, the request is not recommended by the planning commission since there was not an approved motion to recommend approval. Staff does recommend approval as the project is consistent with the land use plan and meets the development standards of the town with regards to parking and open space, et cetera. So,
So it came before us last time, and we had concerns about there not being parking for 4 cars and that sort of thing. So talk to me a little bit about what's changed since it came before us last time.
Yeah, what's certainly the parking is a definite change because there was 2 spaces per unit. There are now 4. Before there was a half space per unit as far as the guest parking, and it kind of scattered throughout, and that is still the case now. The units themselves have changed a little bit. There were no 3-story units. They were all 2-story units. The size is a little different. They were 1,800 to 2,200 before. This is 1,600 to 2,000, kind of is the range now. The number of units has changed. There were 40 before. There's now 46. And that really was accomplished primarily by making the footprint smaller, and you had those 3-story units and that sort of thing is kind of how they kind of made that work within the confines of the property that they were working with. I believe that's all. The road layout, it really hasn't changed. One thing that did come up at Planning Commission was because of the taller units, they will have to have a 26-foot width. All those private drives will have to be 26 feet wide. They're shown as 24. The engineer on the project was at the meeting and said that won't be an issue to make that change. That's just for the fire department, because I have to have a bigger truck and I have to have a little more room to make that happen. So
really, since it came before us last time, we're only looking at 200 square foot, a reduction by 200 square foot in some of the units. It's gone to 3-story, but pretty much what we asked in regards to parking has been met and exceeded.
yes.
I think we had discussion that consistency, Steve, you brought that up a couple times tonight with Lennox being next door and that sort of thing, and some of the units across. I'll be honest with y'all, I don't see an issue. I don't know what else this developer can do more than what we've asked.
I'm like you, I appreciate them going back and making those changes. I mean, they listened.
Absolutely.
We asked them to do that, and they went back and did it. You look at that, sure, you got PUD on one side, you got C4 on the other. We all kind of like commercial, but putting that with the PUD, it brings it back to consistency as well. So I just appreciate them going back and listening and going back and doing what we asked them to do.
Great.
I agree with you, Jim. She went back and took our suggestions and recommendations, and she did what we asked, so.
Great.
And it meets our approval, or meets our
That's right.
standards.
That's right.
I actually supported this at Planning Commission, and, I had several reasons, and we've hit on some of them. It's currently zoned C4. I know that from Lennox, there was an original proposal for live-work townhomes that one section was totally changed, so it's just live only. And the other one, I don't think that is quite taken off. And everything that, learned from economic development, this is not a prime area for commercial development. So I think the zoning, number one, is more appropriate. It is contiguous with towns. There are actually, just a little further down the street, there are some additional towns. And I think we have some mobile homes that they have a nice little community there. So it fits from that perspective. We talked about the parking now being met, and I know that's a concern. And, you've challenged me to drive by some of the places where that's not been done in the past. And not only here, but Murfreesboro and some other places. And you can see, that it is an issue, and I think this takes that issue away. Plus, we've got I like that we have superior exteriors as far as masonry products, whether it be brick or cement fiber board. So I support it then, and I'll continue to support it tonight.
I was the dissenter, and I'll just share why, okay? I think it's a great product, and everything about it looks good. But even from the planning start of this, my big catch was the C4 to a PRD. And I know on the ones on DeLacy, we made that developer keep the commercial on the front. And so call that consistency in my opinion, and that's why I wanted to dissent and not favor it, because I thought I wanted to keep commercial zoning on that corner where it is. And that's my reasoning.
Well, and I don't think we all always have to agree. I don't think that's what we're all put up here for. So I appreciate you letting us know why you can't support it. So, okay, so we've, go
I got
ahead.
one more question. I'm assuming the chief's weighed in on the third story. Is there a ladder truck that would service this area if needed? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that we're covered there, since it's, as far as I know, it's only third story units in that area, right? I don't think there are any others. Okay.
Okay, anything else?
If we decide to make a motion to approve, do we have to add the widened streets as well, or is that already taken care of?
That's already taken care of.
Okay.
That's something, this is approved, but that's something that'll have to be required on their site plan.
Okay.
To meet the fire code, so that won't be an issue.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I move we approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, which is consideration of an ordinance amending the text of the Smyrna Municipal Zoning Ordinance, Article 4, Section 4.010.a regarding minimum required parking for certain residential uses. Kevin?
Yeah, this is a text amendment to the zoning ordinance regarding parking requirements for various residential uses. Currently, the town requires 2 spaces per unit for 1 and 2 family dwellings as well as townhomes, and this proposed amendment would increase that to 4. In addition, the amendment would clarify that garages are not allowed to be counted towards required parking, and that a half space per unit is required within townhome developments for guest parking. These amendments would not apply to age-restricted developments, which do have a different requirement already within the ordinance, which is not proposed to be changed. We did review, just for everyone's information, some of the surrounding communities' requirements. I did include that information in your packet there. We would be requiring more than some and less than others, or equal to others, rather. So we're not way out of line with what other communities are requiring for those types of developments. And really, this kind of puts in writing what we've been trying to get to anyway, as far as with these PRDs. But this, of course, this would apply across the board for all residential developments, regardless of the zoning. But this would kind of put it in writing for everyone. It's clear and upfront for everybody, as the developers and their designers are looking at projects and that sort of thing. It'll be out there for everybody to see. So the Planning Commission did review this amendment, did recommend approval. Staff would also recommend approval.
Questions for Kevin on this? Kevin?
Maybe a comment. I think this is certainly, again, a step in the right direction as far as the the ability to park 4 vehicles in front of each unit. I'm starting to develop a little bit of a concern that maybe on some of these places, instead of having roadways or private drives, for lack of better words, that, maybe circle through a unit, we're starting to see a lot more in the way of hammerheads and things like that. And it's starting to concern me a little bit, just from a safety aspect. I know they're used, but I think maybe there's a better way to do it. And I'm not so sure that we shouldn't look at, as far as the garages in addition to the parking pads. I'm a firm believer that townhomes are today's starter homes. I was looking at a home the other day that was 1,600 square feet with $650,000. I'm thinking, my goodness, how could anybody possibly afford it? I don't think I could afford it. But, with these types of residences, I think you're more in the 300 range, and that's rapidly climbing. So I do consider these homes, and I don't know if there's a way to move towards that, or it's something that we look at as we continue to go forward. But I think we're kind of at that crossroads now.
I hear what you're saying. I appreciate what you're saying. I just don't know that people are going to use their garages for it. I don't think the majority of people will use it for parking. That's what, I mean, I think it keeps them from going to buy a storage unit.
Well, especially when you get to some of the townhomes, because they're limited on what space they have for backyards and those kind of things.
Yeah.
So they can't get a storage unit, or the HOA doesn't allow. I know I've got a deed restriction in my neighborhood that does not allow, outbuildings other than something that matches the exterior of the home. So we run into a couple of different issues there, so.
But I'm open to,
And maybe
Us
it's the-
thinking
maybe
about
it's the size of the lots that we're looking at, or the parcels in and of themselves. Because sometimes I feel like there are certain projects, I feel like we're just trying to, here's 3 acres, let's see what we can get here. Versus making it a real community, a real neighborhood.
Yep.
So I don't know, it's just an observation at this point.
and I hear your frustrations too. I mean, and trying to find a solution. You know what I mean? And I think that's where we all are. And I'm glad that you were able to drive around and see some of them, and not just here, in other communities. But it is frustrating to try to drive down a street and there's cars on both sides. And I know I can barely get my vehicle through. I know an emergency vehicle wouldn't fit through. So, Kevin, I'll be honest with you. I think a lot of us, I know I thought this was already done. Is there anything else that you can think of that we're not thinking of in regards to this?
I think we've already, most of the other stuff we've addressed with, like we talked in the past about the HVAC units on the rear and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, I think we've addressed everything else now. I'll go through and make sure, but I think we have.
I think 35-foot setback will help tremendously, right? It pulls everything back, creates longer driveways, and then double wide driveways at that. So should be plenty of parking for 4 vehicles on anything.
Well, and I don't want developers to think that we're trying to be difficult
Oh, no.
to
No,
deal with. But
I agree with
also, but what I know is a lot of people that are developing here don't live here, and so they don't have to take the messages or the phone calls that come to the police department or the town manager, because people are parked over the sidewalks or whatever. So,
When we get to that point, we had this discussion today, Jeff and I was talking about this, because we do have some folks that are coming in Thursday to the court to contest a ticket, but it's not so much just, parking their vehicle over the sidewalk. The sidewalk is incorporated into part of the driveway, and we got ADA compliance. And that's become such a hot topic, even tied to the ability for the town to achieve grants and stuff if we're not staying in compliance with ADA restrictions. So it's a big mess.
Right.
There's a lot of things involved.
well, and I'm sure other communities are having the same concerns that we are, so. Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 5 is consideration of the sale of land the town of Smyrna owns on Sam Ridley Parkway West and Motlow College Boulevard. Kevin?
Yeah, and I know there's some items on your agenda later regarding this as well. This was just a mandatory referral part of this. The town has owned this property for way over 40 years, and have given some of it away through the years to the state for Motlow, et cetera. The Planning Commission did review this as they are required to do under TCA, and did find it the sale of this land would be in keeping with the adopted comp plan of the town, and did recommend approval.
Questions for Kevin on this? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item B, we actually have something under the Packaged Liquor Board report. That doesn't happen often. Certificate of compliance for, is it Ryan? Ryan Incorporated doing business as Legacy Wines and Spirits. Jeff, you taking this?
Yes, Mayor and Council. There was mainly just a change in some ownership, moving some different ownership rights around, and they received a positive recommendation to the council for a certificate of compliance for Legacy Wine and Spirits.
Questions for Jeff on this? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Motion, do we have a second? Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item C is consideration of modifications to the police standard operating procedures relative to the assigned vehicles, accident matrix, and domestic violence investigations. Hey, Chief.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor and council, we have made some changes on some of our standard operating policies. The first one has to do with the assigned vehicle program, the take-home car program, and we are now going to allow our officers to take their car home if they live within the confines of Rutherford County or 5 miles outside the county limits. And again, this is a measure to try to keep and retain these people and keep them here, working here. The second thing has to do with an accident matrix. Our practice and policy in the past has been when an officer was involved in an accident and the accident was their fault, that officer would get a suspension without pay for 1 day, whether it was a scratch on a bumper or whether they totaled the car. What this does, this matrix, and we borrowed it from the Murfreesboro Police Department, is based upon this matrix is whether they can receive a counseling, suspension, so forth and so on, based upon the severity of the accident, based upon past actions of the officer, things of that nature. And the very last thing has to do with internal. When there is a domestic violence situation involving one of our officers, the on-call detective will be contacted and they will come out and investigate and if necessary, make the arrest. And that's it.
Questions for Chief on this? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I'll move we approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item D is consideration of a request for the town to make a declaration of surplus relative to certain real property. Jeff, are you taking this?
Yes, I believe I am, Mayor.
You didn't know it, you are now.
This is obviously in order to sell property or to dispose of property, the town council needs to declare the property surplus, and that's simply what this agenda item will do, is just declare that the area we know as Summit, the 38 acres, will be surplus property.
Questions for Jeff on this? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item E is consideration of a resolution to allow the sale of the sale of town property by negotiated contract.
Yes, as related to the previous item, this resolution is what will allow the town council to enter into a negotiated contract for the sale of this surplus property.
Questions for Jeff? Do we have a motion?
I move we approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item F is consideration authorization for the mayor to execute a purchase and sale agreement with TD Holdings LLC. Bless you.
Yes, Mayor and Council, as related to the previous two items, this is the purchase and sale agreement with TD Holdings for the property that we commonly know as the Summit there on Motlow Boulevard. As you're very aware, there was a letter of intent, and this is the follow-up to that, and you've had an opportunity to look over the agreement. If you have any questions, I'll answer those, but there is a period that they'll have to bring in a planned development. That will last about 90 days. And then if that is approved, it moves on to the inspection period, which is 120 days. Can be extended, however, the the funds that are put down as a deposit will be surrendered at that time, and then the closing will be within 30 days after that.
Questions for Jeff on this? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 9, under other, we don't have anything unless, Brian, there's something I don't know about.
No, ma'am.
Okay, and item 10, our status reports, our June local sales tax. Sierra?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So our June numbers are in for local sales tax. In June, we brought in about $1.7 million, which makes our year-end total around $18 million. That is 128% of our original budget amount. For state shared tax, June numbers are $700,000, making our year-end total just over $8 million, and that's 117% over what we estimated. Any questions?
Questions for Sierra?
Shop local.
That's
It's like
right.
HG Shop Locals helping.
That's right. Thanks, Sierra. Okay, item 11, announcements. Directors or department heads have anything tonight? Nope. Amber?
Mayor and Council, I have a couple of things I'd like to share with the council tonight. In a very somber way, I'd like to talk about some passings that we've experienced here at the town. Robert Mullican, who is one of our water and sewer maintenance employees, mother passed away, and I think she's in Oklahoma, if I'm correct. Jonathan Pratt with our fire department, father passed away. And Brandon Mangrum in our codes department's mother-in-law passed away. And on a really sad note, I wanted to share a gentleman that passed away that was an employee of the town of Smyrna for many years, Vernon Pappy Young, who was actually assistant police chief. He left the town in 1992, and some of us have known this gentleman from his time over at MTSU and some other places. But as we were talking about this gentleman the other day, the chief and I were talking about it. Chief, actually, I appreciate, Chief went to the funeral and actually spoke at the funeral on the request of the family. Chief and I think two other officers were all that were left at our police department that actually knew and worked with Mr. Young. But his passing is very sad for us as a town. Again, he was our assistant police chief at one time. A couple other things that I'd like to share. I had a letter sent to me by one of our employees, Bert Meese, in the gas department or utilities department. Wanted to commend Sergeant Miller from our police department. He had asked Sergeant Miller to come to the TGA, which is Tennessee Gas Association Safety Summit. And Chief Miller, or Sergeant Miller, actually talked about safe hauling and booming down and some of those kind of things, of equipment and litter and those kind of things. And they just said that he did a great job, and it was very much a needed subject for the TGA representatives, which were Tennessee Gas Association members all across the state. Also, I'm not sure who this is, but I got a call from a lady, and she wanted to compliment somebody named John that works for the town. Her and her friend were on Rock Springs Road when her car just wouldn't go anymore. And this gentleman pulled over and helped them move the car to the parking lot, stayed with them until they had somebody come with them and help them get their car either repaired and or got them home. But she was just very complimentary. I'm not sure who John is, works for the town, but I can tell you, I can think of 100 people out there that have the spirit of John in the town of Smyrna that would do something like that. So I just wanted to show some appreciation. I've got my soapbox up on the screen for the community to see. Love where you live. We continue to fight the litter. I was so aggravated, I came down Sam Ridley Parkway today, and somebody had dropped about 3 bags of garbage and been hit by a couple of cars, and it was spread all over our new road out there. So I'm hoping our folks got out there and got that cleaned up. Again, folks, love where you live. Take some, pride in your community and put your litter in the appropriate receptacles, either at service station or take it home with you and put it in your trash can, those kind of things. But it continues to be a problem. So love where you live. The next thing I've got, the United Way, Smyrna United Way Golf Scramble is coming up August the 19th. We do have some room for some teams, and just wanted to share that with the community. It's a great way to come out and have some fun, play around the golf. We've got all of our golf carts in place now. I don't know if y'all saw Facebook today, but somebody decided to joyride on one of our golf carts. We found it, how many miles was it? About 11 miles away? 0.7. Out in Couchville Pike somewhere in Wilson County. So we know these new golf carts have great battery life. But we do have the golf cart back, and the gentleman that decided to borrow one of our golf carts, I think he's visiting with some of our folks down at the police department right now. So, and he's got a lot of other issues that he's going to deal with besides taking a golf cart. But again, you can reach out here to the town and talk with Jeff Craig or Mike Strange here at the town, and they can help you get signed up, or you can go online, I believe online, and sign up for a team. It's $400 for a 4-person team, and that includes a round of golf, lunch, and some goodie bags. So just wanted to make everybody aware of that. The last thing I have tonight is something that I'm going to be working with our PIO to see if we can get some information out to our community folks. School's back in session. It's very unfortunate that Friday in Murfreesboro, there was a child that was actually hit and lost her life, 11-year-old child in Murfreesboro in a school zone, or in one of the bus zones. We actually had 2 children that were hit today. Luckily, they're okay. I think in the Blackman community, these school zones are there for a reason, folks. We need to slow down. We need to stay off our phones. It's actually, in the state of Tennessee right now, it's illegal to have your phone in your hand anytime. Everything has to be on Bluetooth, but in the school zones, it's even against the law to have your Bluetooth on during the transaction of that traffic. Chief, I know we're taking it very serious, and I hope we continue to monitor the school zones. Folks, our kids are a precious commodity for us, and I cannot imagine. I have children my own that are grown, but I cannot imagine losing a child before my time. And I don't know how people deal with that emotionally, but folks, we can slow down and we can respect these school zones. So I'll be working again with the PIO to get some information out. Hopefully we can get a unified message across the county with our other jurisdictions, but it's something we need to take serious, folks. This is real, okay? Mayor, that's all I've got tonight.
Right. Jeffrey L.
Nothing from me, Mayor.
Great. Raquel?
I'll piggyback off of what Brian was saying. School started, and that was one of the things that I was going to mention this evening. I've actually homeschooled for 14 years, so I had never actually been in it's starting school phase of mine. So on Monday, in getting in all of that traffic, I realized that it's actually a lot of organized chaos. But I wanted to encourage all of our citizens to be mindful that school has started, have some patience, drive carefully, leave a little early if you need to, and also keep in mind, say a prayer for the administration, the students, the teachers, the SROs, the crossing guards. Just be mindful of all of the educational community, and have some patience while everybody's trying to find their place in this new school year. So, and secondly, Miss Friend sent a message to ask us to remind the citizens about the spaghetti luncheon that's coming up. It is Saturday, August the 20th, and the luncheon is from 12 to 1:30 at the Senior Activity Center. Tickets are $15 for adults and $5 for children 10 and under, and you can eat there or get plates to go. And then there will also be that evening a spaghetti and wine dinner from 5 to 8, and that will be at the Smyrna Event Center, and the tickets are $50 each, and there will be a silent and live auction as well as music and dancing. And she also mentioned that if someone was interested in sponsoring, they still have opportunities to sponsor at the lunch and the dinner event. So I made that announcement for Miss Fran, and that's all I have.
Tim?
Condolences certainly to our town of Smyrna families for the losses that have occurred. And for HG, shop local and be kind. Thanks.
Thanks for picking up HG slack. No problem. Jerry?
Yeah, also my condolences to the families that have lost loved ones. Excuse me. I had the privilege today of going to KJR Foods. It's over on Rock Springs Road near the hospital, and they specialize in chicken, fish, and chops. And so we were there for the ribbon cutting. I understand the wings are excellent, and the KJR part stands for the guys King, Jay, and Ralph, and they're the owners, and are actually the sons of the owners. And the first one, as I said before, is opening on Rock Springs Road, and then they got a second one being built on Amable Road. So I really enjoyed being over there today, and thanks for the invitation to go.
Is this in the gas station, or is it a separate?
It is inside the gas station. However, they've got a window where they can pull up. Even one of the Smyrna Ready Mix big cement trucks pulled up and got food while we were there today. And they're also doing catering as well.
Okay. And are there tables inside if you want to sit down
Yes.
and eat?
Let's see. No, there's
Countertop?
countertops, yeah.
Great. Well, the food looks pretty good, to be quite honest with you. So I think we'll have to go give it a try. Great. Anything else, Sherry?
That's all.
I also want to add my condolences to the Smyrna Town family and the losses of family members. I remember Pappy. I started driving in '86. He was still on duty and probably lit me up a time or two. So I remember him well. Also, I want to thank the Parks Department and their work this weekend. Our Spiders Tournament went off essentially without a hitch. We had a small rain delay, but handled it well, and I think we even finished on time that night. The park was full every night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, all day long. We did more out of that concession stand in sales than I've ever done in a tournament there. So it was a very, very successful weekend. And I really appreciate the parks guys. We had 2 or 3 or 5 guys in the park at any one time. We never needed anything. They were right there, and they did a great job. A lot of positive comments from folks all over the country. They also played some games at Cane Ridge, and Volunteer Park was the place where everybody wanted to be. So they would come to our park, come to our stand, and tell us that they didn't want to go back over to Cane Ridge. They wanted to stay at Volunteer Park. So it's a very good environment. And then the last thing is we have several friends that are down with COVID. So COVID is kind of in an uptick again. It does not seem to be as severe as the previous ones, but it's still not something to take lightly. So be smart and be safe, and try to keep your distance. And if you have any symptoms or a cold or anything, distance yourself and try to be safe.
Great. Thanks. Marky Mark?
We'll wait to see if my slide pops up first, but there we go.
There you go.
So last week, we cut the ribbon on the Alta Depot. As you can see, there were many, many people there in attendance, as well as some of our council here and leadership. Also, we had a lot of the small business people there from the community in that area down there. And I think they're pretty excited to see the heads in the beds come that way and support their business. Part of the revitalization plan for the downtown area. They have one building open now. The second one will open real soon. As of last Friday, they already had 10 people registered and moving in. There's a coffee bar, a very beautiful saltwater pool in the back, a pet spa, a dog park. It's right across from the depot, so you'll be able to walk a lot of that area, and part of the revitalization for the entire depot area. We got still a lot to do down there. This is a piece of that puzzle, and that's what we talked about at the ribbon cutting. So
We're not going to get new businesses downtown unless we have people down there, and so I think this hopefully will be a key piece to making that happen.
well, and understandably, there may be a few people that don't want to see that there, but I can tell you the life of that downtown area evolves around having to have growth in that area for those businesses. And if not, everything moves out to the Parkway. That's been our whole thing, revitalizing that downtown area. So I get both sides of that, And I won't speak to that, but I just want to say, I can tell you all the businesses that showed up there feel pretty excited about what's going on down that way, so. Raquel touched on Fran's spaghetti dinner. She had texted and said to make sure did you give the phone number for Fran? I did
not give
Okay,
the
so I
phone
wrote it
number.
down, 615-459-4839, if you're interested in sponsoring or tickets. So I just grabbed that phone number. Back to school, very busy time. Thank you to all of our teachers. Thank you to everybody that was mentioned that's involved in our school system. There are a plethora of people involved, and they all do hard work. I can tell you personally, they do very, very hard work. Praises to all of them for what they do in helping our children. Prayers to the family in Murfreesboro that lost their young daughter in a freak accident on school opening day. Condolences to all the families that were mentioned in our city here. I do know, and Steve may even be able to speak more to this, but Wanda Whitley also passed away, and I don't know that we've recognized that since the time we all were here together before. So, very involved in softball and things like that. So. I think that's all I had, Mayor. Oh, last but not least, Tim did a good job speaking for HG, but be kind, and I'll add be positive. So, be kind and positive, and shop local.
Positively kind.
Thank you.
One other thing, I had it on my list, I apologize. Tomorrow is Tom Rose's birthday.
Woo, the birthday boy.
60.
Very
Can we get
good.
him to sing Oops, I Did It Again?
Very good. I hope Britney Spears makes a phone call to you, so. Couple of items tonight, and the first housekeeping item I have is Smyrna Depot Farmers Market's open each Saturday, 8 a.m. until noon, and it runs through, I'll be honest, September 18th. So get out and shop local there. If you've not been out, there's quite a few options and some pretty good ones and some great-looking meals that I've seen cooked after being at Farmers Market on those Saturdays. Next is our Barbecue Fest. It's Saturday, August the 13th in our Depot District. It's from 6 to 9 there on Front Street. We'll have food, live music, and it is definitely a family fun event, so come out and enjoy that. And last but not least is our Top Gun Night Run. You can register now. It will be September the 16th at 7:30. It will start there at the Event Center. It will wind its way around the airport, then to the golf course, and finish up there at the Jeff Coos Memorial. There will be food trucks, there'll be a band, so even if you're not going to participate in the race, we encourage you to come out and just enjoy a night of fun. The other thing I want to say about the race is it's not for all serious runners. Lots of serious runners that are in the race, but it's about having a good time and for a really great cause. You'll see some people dressed up. You'll see people pulling kids in wagons or pushing them in strollers, and we just want you to come out and help us raise money for the upkeep of the Jeff Coos Memorial. You can go online and register. You can go through the Town of Smyrna website to do that, and it is $50 a person. Saw the medal yesterday. It's a super cool medal. You'll receive a medal, you'll receive a shirt, and a goodie bag. And if you're lucky enough to win, there's some pretty cool trophies and some challenge coins that are given away that night. So come out and enjoy the night with us. A couple of housekeeping things. Condolences to our town family for those that have lost loved ones, especially condolences to the Young family. You all have been a part of the community for a long time. I actually got to see Vernon at MTSU quite a bit, so was able to continue to see how things were going for him. Also want to thank Mark for covering for me last meeting with back to school. Since my other job is a teacher supply store, I've been busy the last couple of months, and you talk about the teachers and the staff. it's all hours for them. It is before school, it's after school. They're in, getting their rooms ready long before that they have to be there. And they're doing it because they love their job. They love what they're doing. They love working for kids. So any way that we can help those that are in the education field, if you have that opportunity, I encourage you to do so. Last but not least is a personal thing, Mom and Dad's 55th wedding anniversary. Just want to say happy anniversary to them. We had a nice night the other night out and surprised Mama a little bit. She didn't know we were all going to be there, so it's always nice to surprise them. But congratulations to them on 55 years. So, anything else? If nothing else, we are adjourned.